Why does Robyn do the things that she does? What occurred in Robyn's upbringing and early life that might offer a glimpse into her psyche when it comes to how she approaches parenting, marriage, and polygamy? Robyn's early life and her relationship trajectory has some striking similarities to her mother's. But it seems like Robyn has taken some steps to make sure that her marriage to Kody differs in some critical ways to her mother's marriage to her father. Let's jump into today's video. Hey everyone, what's up? It's Sarah and welcome back to my channel. Something that I think sums up what it's like when looking into or trying to gather information on what Robyn's early life was like could be summed up by this sentence that I found on the Sister Wives Wiki fandom site. Under early life, it says, not much is known about Robyn's early life, and that pretty much sums it up. This is definitely intentional, I think, for a couple reasons. Historically, children that are raised in polygamy are taught to live their lives in a very secretive way. Christine discusses this a lot throughout the show, as does the teenagers in the Brown family during those early seasons. They all talk about their inability to publicly claim all of their family members. That was one of the benefits of doing the show in the first place. But in addition to that, it is very clear that Robyn has taken very intentional steps to keep a lot of her life before Sister Wives private and unknown. She has worked very hard to be able to control that narrative. We know next to nothing about her ex-husband and her first marriage. We just know of these very vague allegations that Robyn has talked about regarding mistreatment and unhappiness. I have talked in previous videos about the striking similarities that I see between Christine's life journey after polygamy and that of her mother's. Well, Robyn and her mother share some striking parallels as well when it comes to their polygamy journeys. Robyn and her mother Alice both divorced their first husbands, of which they were in monogamous marriage, and then entered into plural marriages when they married for a second time. Robyn followed in her mother's footsteps seemingly when it comes to completely trying to erase husband number one and her children's biological father from their lives. Robyn herself actually took on her stepfather's surname of Sullivan after her mother remarried. And we see on the show that Kody legally adopts Robyn's three oldest kids, and after that, they change their names from Jessup to Brown. I came across this clip of an early interview that the Brown family did, it seems like while they were promoting the show, in which Kody describes actually having the ick factor at first when it came to Robyn.
Kody wasn't so sure.
Initially, I had some personal reservations. For whatever reason, I actually kind of shuddered. I actually had an ick factor. But that was just...
What? He did because I was divorced with kids, and that's a lot. When you marry someone who has children, who has a divorce, there is this past, this history. There are these children from another spouse, and you have to deal with all of that.
Robyn talks in this clip about how she knew how hard it was to take on a wife who was divorced and had kids. It was a lot of work, and she knew this because she experienced that firsthand as one of the kids. And she seemingly followed in her mother's footsteps, with the solution being out of sight, out of mind when it comes to the ex-husband. As we've come to find out more and more, things are not always as they have been made to seem when it comes to the Brown family. Let's take a look at what Robyn has to say about her parents' marriage when she participated in writing the 2012 national bestseller, becoming sister wives. So this is from chapter 4. This is Robyn and Kody's segment. Robyn says, I was raised in a polygamous family in southern Utah. My mother was my father's second wife. They had a truly wonderful marriage, a honeymoon experience that lasted for years and years. Their relationship was sweet, loving, and respectful. They put their family and their happiness in front of any petty grievance that might crop up. I was determined not to marry unless I could find the same kind of relationship. Does that honeymoon experience that lasted for years and years sound familiar? Well, it should. It's yet another way Robyn has tried to mirror her marriage after that of her parents. Robyn has talked multiple times throughout the show of how hard she tries to make it so that when Kody is at her house, he is always having a honeymoon experience. But here is how Robyn's childhood was maybe not so ideal. In the book, Robyn says that she grew up in southern Utah. Her stepfather, who she took his last name and she considers him to be her father, his name is Paul Howard Sullivan, and he actually just recently passed away in February of 2022. But I want to read you an excerpt from his obituary. It describes Paul's professional career centered around being a land surveyor. He has worked for the Utah Highway Department and the state of Nevada, city of Las Vegas, as the assistant city surveyor. So he was working in Las Vegas, Nevada, and had a family in Utah. Further in the obituary, it states he was a loving husband and father, dedicated to living life or death on his own terms and with his code of honor. Paul was known for his outstanding principles, integrity, and helping others when needed. Paul is survived by Carol and Alice, those are his wives, and 8 children. So Robyn was raised in southern Utah, living with Alice, her mother, and her biological siblings, while her dad, Paul, lived in Las Vegas, Nevada, where his wife, Carol, was raising those biological children. Paul had 2 separate families in 2 different states. That doesn't exactly speak to one big happy family, but that's just my interpretation. Robyn actually has talked about on the show the fact that sometimes they would have to wait to celebrate holidays, sometimes weeks after, because they had to wait for her dad to get into town. I have actually seen people refer to Robyn's mother as the mistress wife when I have scrolled through Reddit or on other social media platforms. And while that may be a little harsh in the way to describe Alice, based on this family setup, honestly, it doesn't seem too far off. I hate to say it. I think Robyn decided very early on that while much of her life might mirror that of her mother's, there was no way that she was ever going to be the mistress wife. I think part of the appeal for Robyn to marry into this particular polygamous family was that at the time that Robyn was entering the family, the Browns were on the cusp of this reality show. So their lives were going to be lived publicly.
When I was a child and I was in public school, I kept it a secret all those years. So for me to have my kids going to public school and being out where I hadn't my whole life, it was like, okay, we can do this.
There was not going to be this need to cower in secrecy if you were not wife number 1 or the kids of wife number 1. It was a really big deal for all of the kids to be able to claim all of their parents and all of their siblings publicly. Robyn recounts how when going to school when she was younger, she was never able to do that. So this was a big adjustment for her. I really feel like Robyn's upbringing played a big part in why she went so hard so fast in trying to essentially force herself and her kids upon the other wives and the rest of the kids. Her kids had to immediately start calling Kody dad. And we see time and time again on the show these moments where Robyn will get upset if Kody's original biological children weren't the most accepting of their new brother and sisters. Here we see her get really super boo hurt that not all of the kids were jumping for joy when she announces her pregnancy with Sullivan.
I'm hoping that everybody, is okay with it. I mean, I noticed a couple of the girls, a couple of the teenagers didn't say a thing. Aspen and Maddie didn't smile. They wouldn't even look at me. They were sort of just sitting there like this. And I was like, oh shoot. I noticed Hunter wasn't saying much, and I kind of looked at everybody. I was looking for reactions from everybody. And it stung a little bit because I wasn't really sure at the time, what to think.
First of all, these are teenagers and their attitudes and emotions. I have never parented a teenager, but I was a teenager once, and teenaging, it's a lot. So these are teenagers who literally just welcomed a new sibling a few months prior to this announcement. And as we have learned from various kids recounting life before the show, money was really tight. McKelty recounts a time on her Patreon where they would only have old bread to eat for dinner. I really don't feel like it's wildly inappropriate for these teenagers to be less than enthused at the thought of yet another mouth to feed when money and resources was already being spread thin. Robyn would actually go on to carry this grudge against Hunter in particular for the better part of a year. She even discusses it after Solomon's birth. I believe it was very important and critical to Robyn for her and her kids to be viewed as legitimate right off the bat when joining the Brown family. Because I don't think that that's how it was for Robyn when her mom married her dad and they were all growing up in Utah. I don't think that she had that same experience. I have often criticized Robyn on this channel for not really participating in mothering any of the other kids except for her own, or participating in nurturing sister-wife relationships with the other wives. It has always seemed to me that gaining the favorite spot with Kody and the favorite spot for her kids was of the utmost importance. Why on earth would Robyn insist that her kids cannot go more than 2 or 3 days without seeing their father, when it never seemed to bother Robyn that Kody would go literally months without seeing any of his other kids? I really think this ties back to the fact that when Robyn was growing up, they would sometimes have to wait weeks to celebrate holidays for her dad to come into town. So as long as her kids are having their attention needs met, it's kind of like it is what it is when it comes to the other wives and kids. I really feel like Robyn probably views this as just a side effect of polygamy, that if Kody's time cannot be divided equally, it's just certainly not going to be her or her kids who suffer. I think it's really fascinating that we have 2 wives whose lives seem to be really following the same trajectory as their mothers. We have Christine kind of following the same path as her mother Annie, and Robyn, her journey has seemed to be very similar to her mother Alice's. I also find it interesting with Robyn, the steps it looks like she has taken to sort of overcorrect for things that she probably saw as lacking in her own childhood. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to my channel, follow me on Instagram and Twitter at realiteasquad, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Take care. Have a good one. Much love.